Thank you very much. Ms. Dahlia Rabin, Chair of the Yitzhak Rabin Center, Ms. Hannah Ranan, Aunt of Daniel Pearl, distinguished guests, and Your Excellencies, the representatives of foreign missions in Israel, Alei Gefen and members of the Alei Gefen Chorus, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, Erev Tov, V'Shana Tova. I did not know Daniel Pearl personally. I first heard his name through press reports of his abduction in Pakistan in January of 2002. Over the next several weeks, I followed the story along with millions of others around the world, hoping that it would end happily, and then grieving for him and his family when it did not. Like all too many thousands and dozens of countries, Daniel fell victim to terrorists who sought to strip him of his individuality and humanity and to turn him into a two-dimensional symbol that they could exploit to somehow further their twisted political agenda. They did not succeed. First, they underestimated modern law enforcement professionals who were able to identify and track them down with amazing efficiency. 4 arrests were made within 2 months of Daniel's disappearance. Convictions were obtained within 6 months. Perhaps more importantly, though, the terrorists also underestimated the love Daniel's friends and family felt for him. Having lost Daniel to the terrorists, they were not about to let the terrorists steal his memory. Thanks to them, his legacy would not be that of a tragic victim of a brutal crime, but rather that of a courageous young man who lived life to the fullest and touched the lives of thousands of others through his journalism, his love of humanity, and his passion for music. In fact, Daniel was an accomplished musician for whom music was an essential form of expression, a way of making himself understood, of understanding others, and of celebrating their common humanity. Transforming their personal tragedy into a bridge between cultures and peoples, Daniel's family and friends established the Daniel Pearl Foundation, which today sponsors activities and events all over the world to promote tolerance and understanding. The most famous of these events are the Daniel Pearl Music Days, which are now held annually around the time of Daniel's birthday. And in fact, that's what we're here tonight to celebrate. So tonight, Israel joins with countries as diverse as Cameroon, Sweden, Pakistan, and the United States, not only in celebrating the life of Daniel Pearl, but also in celebrating a passion common to every country in the world, music. In its mission to bridge religious and cultural gaps through celebrating sacred music, the Alei Gefen Chorus is a perfect example of the kind of understanding between different cultures that is the goal of Daniel Pearl Music Days and of the American people. The United States Embassy is committed to facilitating such encounters between people of different backgrounds and faiths. We are very proud to support tonight's concert. I would also like at this time to call for a moment of silence to honor the victims of today's tragic earthquake, which took place in the Indian subcontinent and ironically affected thousands of people in the very country where Daniel was abducted, Pakistan. Thank you all very much. And I would like to close by wishing you Ramadan Kareem and a Gamar Khatima Tova. Tada.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. Ambassador, excuse me. Time will come. See how much television influences us. Time will come. ועתה אני מתכבד להזמין את הגברת דליה רבין, ביתו של ראש הממשלה שנרצח, יצחק רבין, זכרו לברכה, ומי שעומדת בראש מרכז רבין לשלום. נאמר לי לשלום, והוא פעל הרבה לשלום, אני לא מוותר על זה. Now I have the honor to call on to the stage Ms. Dahlia Rabin, daughter of the late Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and chairperson of the Rabin Center. Okay, thank you very much.
ערב טוב, קהל נכבד, His Excellency, the new Ambassador of the United States to Israel. אני מברכת את כולכם שבאתם, מברכת את היוזמה, ומאחלת לכולכם גמר חתימה טובה, ולכבוד האורחים ואנשי הקורפוס הדיפלומטי שנוכחים כאן, אני מתנצלת, אבל אני אדבר באנגלית. I want to thank the organizers of Daniel Pearl Music Days for inviting me to be here tonight. I did not have the honor or privilege to personally know Daniel Pearl, as I am sure that most of you in the audience did not know him or probably did not even hear of him before his tragic death. But in reading about him, I feel that something in his tragedy seems to have become personal for so many of us. Why so? What about him touched us so? Was it his young age and the fact that he was an expectant father, or was it something in him that all of us could identify with? Daniel was a very cultured and accomplished journalist, a citizen of the world, so to speak, having grown up in an upper-middle class suburb of Los Angeles, educated at Stanford, and having traveled throughout the world. Looking at his writings, one can see that he was full of humor, fairness, and love for humanity. Despite all this, he was brutally executed for being a Jew. For us in Israel, and indeed for Jews throughout the world, it is the fact that his captors and murderers emphasized his Judaism and his connection to Israel that in some ways made all of us feel vulnerable. Personally, Daniel's story reminds me of another kidnapping that took place here in Israel when my father was Prime Minister, the kidnapping of Nachshon Wachsman. There are a number of parallels. The fact that both were ostensibly held for the release of prisoners, and the fact that the parents of both were immigrants. The Wachsmans came to Israel from the United States, and the Pearls came to the United States from Israel. The only difference is that here in Israel we were able to make an attempt at saving Nachshon, an attempt which ultimately failed. But in the case of Daniel, there was little chance of locating and saving him. But his name and legacy will live on through these music days that are organized in his memory and throughout the important work of the Daniel Pearl Foundation. Since my father's assassination, we in Israel have struggled with how best to remember, how to preserve the legacy, and how to commemorate the man and the leader. As someone who has struggled with these issues, I am sure that the Pearl family went through or are perhaps still going through a similar process. Let me say to the Pearl family that through music and the cross-cultural work of Daniel Pearl Foundation, you have successfully preserved the legacy of this impressive and engaging human being. May his memory be a blessing. יהי זכרו ברוך. תודה רבה.